Good evening, everybody. I'm Stephen Schroeder, president of Ideal Practices. With me this evening, I have two very, very special guests. I have two awesome practice owners that have been able to accomplish something very, very unique in all of dentistry, and that is take a startup, a scratch startup practice, and be able to elevate that practice to $1 million practice in just under 12 months. So with me this evening is Dr. Ben. Good evening, Dr. Ben, and
Good
Dr.
evening.
Brian. Hey, Dr. Brian.
Hey.
Um, Guys, thanks. Kind of a casual setting tonight, so thank you very much for taking time away from obviously your practice, from your family, to spend some time here to share experiences in terms of your journey through the idea of becoming a practice owner and that journey to where you are today. And love to be able to get some additional information and insight to be up so that you can share your stories and how those resonate with some of the young associates that are out there right now that are thinking about practice ownership and is it a reality and who's done it and your background will help with that. So you guys are both $1 million practice owners in 12 months. Awesome. If you would, Dr. Brian, tell me a little bit more about yourself, your practice, if you would, and tell everybody.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the founder and owner of Precision Dental here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And I love being able to say that. I love my practice. I love my team. I love the culture we've been able to create. And it's amazing how quickly we grew and where we're at today. 2.5 years in, going to be 3 years in August, going through just the ups and downs of startup practice ownership. And I'm just really grateful that there's been a whole lot more ups than downs. And I'm excited to share some of those, as well as a little bit more of my journey getting to where we are today, where I have an associate, several hygienists. We've kind of outgrew our space already, and we haven't even been open 3 years yet. And everyone's telling me, when are we going to move into the space next door? So pretty amazing stuff. Really grateful for.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What about you, Dr. Ben?
So I own and started Thrive Family Dental in May of 2019 in Wilmington, North Carolina, on the beautiful coast. And it was a dream that took me 4.5 years to realize. From the time I knew that I wanted to do my startup to the time that I opened, I took my sweet time, but it ended up being the practice of my dreams. And it is something that I still, I just cherish and love. And it reignited my passion for dentistry, because practice was open, grinding for corporate dental for a long time. And I would have conversations with my wife about, like, can I do this for my entire career? And started my own practice, and that process completely reignited my passion for dentistry, for patient care, for just the beauty of dentistry. So I'm incredibly thankful for the opportunity to have been able to start my practice and for what it is today.
That's awesome, guys. Great stories. Obviously, you collaborated with our team here at Ideal Practices. Dr. Ben, I'll kind of go back to you. Like, describe that interaction with Ideal Practices. What ways did you feel like you had the support of Ideal Practices to reach those goals, and describe that experience? If you
Oh man, it was like I said, it took me a long time to get open. I originally contacted Ideal Practices in August of 2015. I just graduated dental school. I was in my residency, and I'd gone through kind of the process of deciding I wanted to do a startup rather than an acquisition, and interviewed a few different companies about startups, and knew as soon as I had the vision call that Ideal Practices was going to be the firm that was going to get me the practice that I wanted. It wasn't going to be the practice that they wanted. It was going to be the practice that I wanted, which was really important to me. And went through the startup phase, went through, probably the first 4 or 5 steps. And then my wife and I just kind of like, it was a come to Jesus moment with each other. We were living in Portland, Oregon. We'd done our demographics. We had done site selection. We got the bank on the line, and right before we signed the bank loan, we both looked at each other and were like, we want to move to the beach. We want to be warm. we want to we want a better place to live than Portland. And we called Ideal Practice and said, hey guys, so we're going to move across the country in the middle of our startup. Is that going to be all right? And
I remember this conversation.
yeah. And you guys go, really? I said, yeah. And they go, great. So call us when you're ready. And it was like, you guys literally just press the proverbial pause button. And I moved across the country, got established in a new community. And a year and a half later, I called you guys 2 days after Christmas, 2017, and said, I'm ready. Let's do this. And you guys were like, we're ready. Let's do this. And it was like we hadn't missed a beat. You guys were so quick, so responsive, ready to go. It's like it never really changed.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely an incredible experience.
It was, yeah, that was awesome. Brian, if you would like describe, you had a slightly different path than that, and through that process, and I know lots of conversations that you and I even had during site selection and all that stuff. But describe the experience that we had a lot of team members that you interacted with and guided you. If you would share that experience, with our team.
100%. You get to know the individuals within Ideal Practices like their family. Even you specifically, I remember the early conversations that I would have with you when it came to lending and the location and all that. I would be on the phone with you, and I think the first couple times, Allie, my wife, she would ask me, who are you on the phone with? And I say, Steven. And she's like, oh, your brother? Because my brother, I got a brother named Steven. And I was like, no, Steven Shutter, Ideal Practice. Oh, okay. And about, the fifth or sixth conversation, she knew which Steven I was talking about. So it's just amazing to get to know, obviously, you and your team, John, the Picasso of dental office design, Michelle, my startup MBA advisor, who I owe so much to, who really taught me so much about the ins and outs of the business of owning a practice. And obviously, I remember having a really great conversation with Jen here not too long ago. She was the first person I talked to. And we were on the phone. I was telling her, I'd been doing this research and I'd been looking into a startup versus an acquisition. And I had this opportunity to do a startup, and I told her all the different things that I had already planned out and lined up. And she said, gosh, it sounds like you might have a pretty good handle on things. And we were about to get off the conversation. And I remember she stopped me right at the end before we hung up. And she said, but let me just see if I can't line you up with a conversation with Jayme Amos. It can be a 5-10 minute phone call. He might just have a nugget or two, a little bit of advice that can just help you along your journey. Well, I was at Fort Stewart Dental Clinic number 4. It was during my lunch break. And here's this 5-10 minute conversation with Jayme Amos that turned into about an hour and a half. And we're just talking about how passionate we are about this and that. And that was the moment right there. I knew I found my guy that was going to help me realize this vision, realize this dream that I have for this team culture, patient experience, way that I knew dentistry could be done, and wanted to deliver it to patients and to a community where my family can really be a part of it in a deeper, meaningful way. Because he got it. I could tell, I could feel it through the phone so early on. And then the rest of it just lined up with all the other incredible people at Ideal Practice that I've already mentioned. So pretty cool.
Great. Love that. I love that story. Yeah. And I can imagine a conversation with you and Jayme, 5-10 minutes. I don't know about that.
I got me laughing.
That'll be a tough one. So guys, hey, I'm going to jump into some deeper topics, I guess, or slightly deeper topics. Your fears, obviously going into a startup, either one, Brian, some of your biggest fears, obviously a startup is, it's on you, it's on your shoulders, it's there, you have no patient base. Describe some of your fears going into this and what was overcome.
Yeah, for me, it was, I didn't really know many people personally that had ever done a startup. I come from a long line of dentists. My grandpa, his 2 brothers, my dad and his 4 brothers, they're all dentists. I got first cousins that are dentists. And so here are all of my family members who I love and trust. They have all acquired practices, really. And so, Packard Family Dentistry, has been around for a while, and it kind of got handed down each generation, and it very successful. And I guess a startup was never really on my radar until I started looking at acquisitions myself with my wife. And I mean, I looked at 2 dozen different 50 different, tons of different practices. And my wife and I would always leave thinking that there was something missing. And I knew what I wanted as far as how I wanted to practice dentistry. I had this vision in my mind, and I thought, surely it's out there somewhere. And I kept looking for it, and I couldn't find it. And then that idea crept in my mind of a startup, because it didn't really seem like a reality to me in the moment. When looking back, my thought process was, I'm going to find the practice of my dreams. I'm going to find this ideal practice that I'll be able to associate for a year and then buy and take over, or whatever it may be. And I never found it. I don't know about you, Ben, but I didn't come across it. I didn't find this like incredible practice that I have today, now, that I knew was possible to create. And ideal practices helped me create it. My vision, like you mentioned earlier, Ben, it wasn't ideal practices vision. It was my vision. They helped me realize, asked me the right questions, brought it out of me in a way that I couldn't even have done for myself.
That's right.
Yeah. Similar experience, Ben?
I know, like, for me, so my background before dentistry, I ran a commercial painting company, and I've had a couple different businesses before I went to dental school. And so when I did my startup, I knew the challenges of running a business. And I knew that if I wasn't the smartest person in the room, I was in the right room. So that's what I knew in my startup. I wanted to be set up from the start with the best potential outcome. I wanted the best people in the room with me, telling me, teaching me, guiding me, coaching me, counseling me, so that I had the best potential outcome. And my practice success is, mirrors the fact that I picked the right team. I mean, some of the fears that I had, though, I mean, probably like every dentist doing a startup: empty chairs, dental insurance, accounts receivable, financing. Where do I put the thing? How big should my sign? Like, there's so many decisions. Like, I remember sitting down towards the end of the build out phase, getting ready to open, and having to go through decision after decision, and getting decision fatigue. Like, getting to the point, like, I just can't do another decision. And I couldn't imagine doing that without coaching and guidance. Like, to have driven the entire process solo, I can't imagine the number of mistakes I would have made. So that was a big fear driver for me, was the fear of what I don't know. I'd run businesses before, but those were completely unrelated. So I understand bookkeeping and fundamentals of business, but the business of dentistry, man, that is an animal that's I'm still learning about, 2 years into practice ownership. So that was probably my biggest fear of driving, is just knowing that I needed to have smarter people around me to be successful.
Yeah, I love that. And I think to point out to everybody that's watching this, for the two of you, you guys don't have MBAs. You aren't experts in marketing. You didn't own practices before. It was like, this was your first pass. So I think for the associates out there are thinking, I can't do it because I'm not an expert in marketing. Okay. I need to be a practice owner. Mm-hmm. I need to have years of experience in working here. But neither one of you, and you're two of many of the success stories that we've been a part of. But I think for everyone out there, it's like, you guys didn't have that additional training before to come in and go, I can move this. You went into areas that were competitive. We'll kind of dovetail into some of the demographics elements. Okay. went into areas that weren't void of dentists. And frankly, like Brian's numbers are about 25% under industry standard. Ben's numbers very similar in terms of like, but it was, you didn't have prior practice ownership that was going to elevate you. So for everyone's watching, it's like, guys, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, like you could do it. It takes the team in the learning process to do that, to go through that. So you don't need that prior like practice ownership. How do I do marketing experience? It's because a startup is completely different, you know, than acquiring a practice, and how do you move into that?
That's right.
So I just want to piggyback off of what you both just said, if that's okay, because it really, when the biggest fear, I guess, would be for me, the fear of the unknown was the biggest fear factor. I knew what a dentist's life looked like because I was a son of a dentist. I was in and out of the dental office a lot. You know, I got to be around it a lot, around dentistry a lot. But the fear of the unknown of a startup dental practice with all of the things that Ben mentioned, that was the biggest fear. It's just not knowing what step to take first, and then second, and then third. And what happens if I took step 10 for step 3? Is that going to mess up the steps between 3 and 10? And so not knowing what to do and when to do it in the right order was daunting, to say the least. And I remember early on, one of the first things that Jayme said to me, he said, and it sticks, I tell this to a lot of people now because it still to this day, it just hit me the right way at the right time. He said, here at Ideal Practices, we are great, probably the best at preventing mistakes. We're not so great at fixing them. So he said, look, you front load this process and you take the right steps in the right order and you do it the right way. That's how, like Ben said, that's how you set yourself up for success, for short-term and long-term success. That fear of the unknown was the biggest fear factor for me. And I think that's what was such a comforting thing, is that Ideal Practices has success stories and has had them for years. And they've done it all across the country. They know what to avoid. They know the hurdles you got to overcome. They know the pitfalls to avoid. They know what step comes first, second, third, A through Z, however you want to call it. And that was such a comforting thing to know that I had an entire team full of specialty people within this firm that could help me with each step of the way. And they were in my corner. They only had my best interest at heart because their reputation and who they are and what they stand for was completely hanging on my success also, and me realizing my vision. And that to me was a huge burden lifted off of my shoulders when that clicked in my brain. And I could truly feel that from you, Stephen, from Jayme, from every single person on the Ideal Practices team. That meant everything to me.
I think the one thing that a lot of people watching would talk about is that acquisition versus startup, where I think it's acquisition is less risky, startup is way risky. Why for you guys, Ben? I think Brian, you touched on that. You saw multiple practices, maybe dozens of practices. Ben, your story in kind of contemplating acquisition versus startup. Why startup, and why for you?
Honestly, one of the biggest factors was I didn't want to buy somebody else's problems. You're buying their culture, you're buying their bad, mistreated equipment, you're buying a patient family that's been taught to be a patient a certain way by the dentist practice and treatment philosophy. You're buying that. And to come in and to try to, the hurdles to get there is so challenging. It's you'll never get there, in my belief, because of the culture that already exists. Changing culture is very, very hard. even if you replace your whole staff, your patients still have the culture. The systems, the way the business was run that you buy, you have to change them all to make them match your culture, the way you want to practice, or you have to conform to them. And I just knew as a young dentist with my whole career ahead of me, I didn't want to fight that fight. I would rather take the risk on my own and do it the right way, the way that I want to do it from the start, so I'm not inheriting bad habits, bad culture, bad patients, and go for it. Plus I mean, if you want to get into the finances of it, like how much it costs to buy the goodwill and how much goodwill you lose versus market. I mean, there's a ton of numbers and metrics that go behind the difference in the values versus tax. And there's a lot of implications there, but the main thing was I was willing to go through the early struggle and the challenge of doing the startup compared to the acquisition, because the acquisition feels safe. But the startup feels right.
I love that. I would love to coin that for everybody listening, like that, what you just heard, like, I think I want to repeat that. It was acquisition feels safe, but a startup felt right. And that I've never heard, that's pretty profound. And I think for those out there looking at there, Brian, what says you on that path of acquisition versus startup? Similar experience on that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's, gosh, Ben, I think I'm just going to call you like Sensei or Yoda. That is absolutely brilliant. Like,
Start your practice, you must.
Steven, we need to get on a phone call with Jayme after this. Crystal, we got a tagline that one. That is awesome, because
that's a good one.
Perfectly put.
Yeah.
It's so true. That's what everyone preaches in dental school. That's what everyone preaches after dental school, that an acquisition is safe.
Yeah.
But man, it never felt right to me.
Yeah.
Because of all of the different practices I looked at. Always left. Both my wife and I were always like, man, can you see yourself here? Like for the next 20, 30 years? Like, is this it?
I like the carpet. The carpet is really nice.
Out there, there's got to be something better, right? And because we wanted something magnificent, something awesome, and like Ben said, we have a whole career ahead of us. Why not create that awesome thing and then get to practice that way for the rest of your career, and bet on yourself and work at making that vision something special to show up to work every day, for your team to show up to work every day, for your patients to come to whenever they come into your practice. So for me,
create the culture.
Once you get a taste of that vision, once you get a little glimpse of it, it's really hard to let go. It's really hard to say, you know what, that's not going to be worth it in the end, or you know what, that's going to be too hard. Now, once you see it, you will do anything and everything to get it. Yeah. Because you want it desperately, and you're willing to put all your passion, all your hard work, everything into it, so that you can realize that glimpse, that vision, that light that you see.
Love it. Some of the meat and potatoes parts of the process, guys, if you would, like, describe the funding aspect. Ben, you mentioned like a little bit of a different journey. Brian, your journey in terms of funding. I like to talk about funding in real estate, if we could, because a lot of people are kind of scared. Like, how do I get the funding? How does it happen, and how does it come together in terms of a startup? Either one. Like Ben, I'll just kind of pick you. Like a little bit of a different path. You mentioned we had a pause in your scenario, moving and things like that. Describe, as far as that funding and what was available and what is available.
I mean, there's the good news is the day that I realized that funding for dentistry was not going to be a big challenge was the day that I told a banker at like a beer drinking event that I got into dental school, and he gave me his card and said, "When you graduate, give me a call. I want to give you money for practice." Just because, I mean, dentistry, for me, it was relatively straightforward. They said, hey, you want to have at least, I think it was like minimum 3 to 6 months cash on hand, and make sure that you got that set aside. And we went through the financing process really easily. It was very straightforward. When I was in Oregon, it was straightforward. When I moved to North Carolina, it was straightforward. It didn't really seem to be any big challenge for the size and scope of the project.
Yeah. Brian had a slightly different experience with funding. Okay, I think at one point they wanted your mom, your dad, I think your aunt and uncle, a couple other things, a couple $100,000. Yeah, Brian, you want to describe that? What we did in that scenario with your funding? If we remember some of the initial, I'll say offers.
Sure. This is where you came in, riding on your white horse to Stephen.
His white minivan.
Yeah, strolling on in. No, that's me. No, it's gosh, I remember some really, you can call it tough love, you can call it brutal honesty, you can call it whatever you want, but we had some really good, strong conversations about, hey, let's really look at this thing here, because I remember we were originally going to do a startup for a 5,000 plus square foot space. And now I wish I had it. Who knew, like 2 years in, that we need all that space. But at the time when we're first starting out, it just made so much more financial sense. And the landlord actually presented to us this idea of splitting up the space, 3,000, 2,000. So we ended up going with the 3,000 square foot space. And it has financially turned out to be an incredible decision to really help us get our legs under us super fast.
Yeah.
Really, like within the first few months of opening. And
what was provided to you in terms of funding? If you remember, like you had a couple local options. We won't name names, but a couple local options that.
Yeah. So we had 2 local options, and they weren't, first of all, willing to even give us the amount that we were wanting or needing to fund the project to begin with, even though you helped me put together a stunning business plan and just laid it all out and was very conservative with it. But still, the local banks just, I guess, weren't really wanting to take on that risk or that uncertainty, especially, I'm sure we'll get into it, based off of the demographic studies and the number of dentists in my town. And so, but then once we got on board with the right square footage and the right bank and lender, then it happened. It happened quick and it was smooth. Like Ben said, once we had the right location, the right space, as far as square footage, to go along with the awesome business plan that we presented to, in our particular case, Bank of America, it was a no-brainer. And it was just boom, 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 boom. Okay, let's move forward. Let's rock and roll. And that's how it went for me. It was a little struggle at first. And I pushed back on you on the local bank thing. I really wanted a local bank. I really wanted that connection, that relationship. And you were like, okay, we'll see what happens. We'll see how this goes. Didn't happen. Didn't go. We did it your way. I should have just done it your way from the beginning. So lesson learned. After that, did it your way.
We always say we don't have to be right. We just got to make it right. And I think, and for everyone watching, like, we're not saying local bank versus big bank is better or vice versa. I think what I'm saying is, like, there's a lot of lenders, especially in sometimes in this environment and industry, where they're like, dentist, yeah, we love dentistry. And then you start talking about, what are these things? What's the investment to get open? And, and in the real understanding. And then when you hear the dreaded word, when I always hear this from bankers, well, we're going to talk to the committee. Okay. I don't know who that is and who that's comprised of when it comes to bank committees, but it usually means people that are a little bit more conservative about what it is. And they don't quite understand a startup. They don't understand, like, what does that mean? And everything for them is a risk tolerance. So that risk tolerance, when you hear startup, it means there's not revenues. And so for that, it's aligning with the right lending partner and lending solution that understands what that growth pattern can be and what that potential is, and then leaning into a business plan and leaning into the demographics and a strategy to open properly. So for those watching, like, local banks, they have a place. They may not have, they may have a place in your market, but they may not have a place at all. Especially if it comes down to strings attached. In Brian, in your case, I remember there were lots of strings attached, and I was like, we can find better, we can get better. So
yeah. And now, interestingly enough, Stephen, after, when we hit the 2-year mark, of course, after we'd even been open for like 6 months,
yeah,
the local banks were coming by on the weekly, wanting our business.
You're established now.
Oh yeah, they see our marketing, they see our growth, they see us
Yeah.
out there in the community, and
Yeah.
they want to be part of it. Well, when we hit the 2-year mark this last year, I started shopping around at the local banks, and we made the transition to a local bank, saved a ton of money, and have a great relationship. They're a stone throw away. They're literally right across the street now. And so it's actually even better now than it probably would have even been in the beginning, having made that transition a little bit later on at the right timing.
Cool.
And so now I do have that local relationship, and I saved a whole lot of money to begin with on the front end with the right lender and the right bank. And I saved a lot of money with the right local bank at the right time, making that transition. So it actually worked out fantastically in the end.
Cool. One of the terms that we use a lot in ideal practices is the term the peanut gallery. And as you well know, there's a lot of information that's out there. There's a lot of Facebook groups. I think what we like to say is like there's a lot of well-intentioned people that are out there that with good intentions to help others. But I think a lot of times you have to really understand where that advice is coming from. So on the topic of peanut gallery, Ben, I'll say knowing the information that's out there, especially with a lot of the young associates watching, we're like, wow, I can get all my information for free from people that are just typing about that versus reality and the process that you went through. How would you describe that, and how would you help others that are kind of thinking about that path when it comes to seeking advice from those resources?
Yeah, I think the best way to describe your Facebook groups, your downtowns, whatever, the advice you're going to get through different dental media is, it's like taking dating advice from somebody who married their high school sweetheart. It worked once, right? It worked once. They got lucky. It worked once in the beginning, and they're riding it out. And I think a lot of the advice that people give, it's because it worked once. It worked for them in their market at that time.
Yeah.
Right? That is terrible advice for somebody else in a different market at a different time. Like, yeah, the way that you married your high school girlfriend is not going to work with a 28-year-old, right? Like it's a completely different game.
Not that there's anything wrong with marrying your high school sweetheart, or whoever did that's listening.
I did too. I don't give dating advice. I
was going to remain out of that one for a little bit. I was like, where's this one going to go? Yeah. But I love that. Yeah.
I opened one successful startup. I don't go on Facebook in Dentaltown and tell everybody how to do a dental startup, because mine worked for me in my community with a ton of help from professionals who have opened hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of practices in every community across the nation, with dentists with individual visions and passions and treatment plan philosophies and scope of dental. Like, it all is variable.
Yeah.
You can't listen to one guy who was successful one time.
Yeah. Brian, similar.
Oh yeah. I would say there's value in some of these groups. Don't get me wrong. And I'm sure Ben would agree. There are some, there's some value there, and there are some things you can learn. There's obviously experiences that you can learn and hopefully try to avoid pitfalls or mistakes that others have had, unfortunately, or also maybe learn from some other people's successes and what might be working for them. Yeah. But when it comes to starting up a dental practice, it is not a one nugget here, one nugget there. type of thing. It's not a post thread here or a thread there with varying views and different advice from different people all over the country that did it a different way.
Yeah.
There is their visions and what they have done and what they're doing. And then there's your vision and what you want to do for your practice and your community. What's going to make you deeply connected to your team, your patients, your community, not what they did and how they're doing it. And so there's plenty of value, and I'm in these groups, and I comment in these groups, and I learn from these groups. It's awesome. But if I am going to start up a dental practice with my vision, I'm not going to follow someone else's advice for every step they don't even know every step that needs to be done for a dental practice, but professionals do that have done it hundreds of times.
Yeah.
That's who I'm going to rely on to realize my vision for my dental practice, for my startup. And so there obviously is value there. I am a part of these groups, and I love some of these groups, and there's a lot of bright minds in these groups and a lot of awesome colleagues and peers that give great, nuggets here and there. But starting up a dental practice, that's a whole lot of nuggets you got to put into one basket, and you got to make sure that those nuggets are in the right order.
Yeah.
All at the same time. So
yeah, I love it. I love that. And I love what you said, Ben, which was, what you're not saying is, I don't want to help others, but it's like, I need to be selective about how I help, because what worked for me in your market doesn't work for everybody else. And so it'd almost be, I'll just use kind of the word, not saying almost like irresponsible in that case, almost like, I could tell you everything that I did. It's not really irresponsible. It's just, it's kind of like not relevant to what's happening today. What you did 2 or 3 years ago is not even relevant to someone that's starting up today in a different market at a different time. And that's my fear, is there's so much information that's out there, but it's like, how do you disseminate if that information is coming from somebody that's done it once, never has done it before, never has done anything. And I think everyone's looking for, I'll say this, is everyone always looking for the silver bullet? Is there a silver bullet to a startup? Is there like pill, here's startup, comes out? Guys, I don't think there is. It's in our world, we have 13 stages that we go through to lead open. I leave one of those out. It's like a totally, Brian, you mentioned it, like, oh, step 1 to step 7, I can get messed up. It's like, we got 13 stages. We leave one out. It's a dramatically different experience in result in that. And don't leave it to chance, everybody, to take that advice from those that haven't done it hundreds of times. It's fearful, for sure.
So Ben, I'm sure you've gotten this question, because I've gotten this question a bunch. Ben, you're a highly successful startup practice owner, and I am sure you have had peers, colleagues come to you and ask you, so what do you recommend? If I was, I'm thinking about doing a startup, what do you recommend? How should I do it? And I've been asked that, I don't know how many times now, maybe 100, 200 times now, from different peers and colleagues of ours.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I say. And I'd be interested to know what you say when you hear that question, because I know you're going to get it more and more as well. It's always, I highly recommend that you find, I'm very blunt and very straightforward. I highly recommend that you hire Ideal Practices, jump in both feet, don't look back. They'll have your back every step of the way.
Sure.
You'll regret it. That's what I say. And I'm just 100% honest based on my experience and what they've done for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious as to say, what do you say?
I ask them what they want first, do a little soul searching with them. But invariably it comes down to, they need to hire Ideal Practices. Like it really, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. Some people a lot of people, they want free advice, right? They want to do it on their own. They're afraid of the fees. It's going to be really expensive, all this type of stuff. And I'm like, I saved more money in my startup because of Ideal Practices than, I don't know if Ideal Practices should know this, then they charge. between my equipment, materials, and construction costs, the deals I got on my real estate, the tenant improvement allowance that I got was double their initial offer because of ideal practices. The lease negotiation, it goes on and on and on. All of the things that I didn't even know you could do, didn't even know existed. All of a sudden, they're just like, I felt like I was stealing at a couple times. Like, really, we can do this? You're like, absolutely. This is industry norm for people who aren't dentists. Like, everybody knows this is how you do commercial real estate. Yeah. They just try to pull the wool over the eyes of dentists because everybody does. That's right. For me, it's like, you got to hire them because you're going to spend way too much money. And you're going to put your plumbing in the wrong spot, and you're going to have a $50,000 plumbing bill after you already open. Like, but you would have known that. Like, that's the stuff. Like, when we're talking about like fear of the unknown, like, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. That's some of the stuff. Like, you don't know that you can negotiate this way, or that you can ask for these things, or that your operatories need to be laid out specifically for gravity, for the type of vacuum that you need and the size of vacuum you need that the manufacturer says you need versus what you actually need. And, it was just, I can go on and on about the nuances of what the consulting and ideal practices and the 13 steps provide. But it's like, we don't have time for that. There's 13 steps. You go through them when the time's appropriate, and it's awesome. Yeah.
What was your favorite part of the process? If I ask, like, Brian, what was your, in terms of steps, like, what was your favorite part of the process?
Oh, man.
Or did you have one?
I definitely had one. I mean, bless you, Stephen, and your team. Like, the front few steps, like, those are administrative necessary steps, and I'm so grateful to have had you and Kyle, and the list goes on of people that helped me with that stuff, right? But that was definitely not my favorite part. I was just really glad that I had great professional help to get me through that part, because my favorite part was 100% like designing the office, talking about the startup MBA, like Michelle, when we got with Michelle finally, and we're going over our patient experience, we're going over our swag, we're going over the true, like, what is this going to look like, feel like, smell like, what, like, all of the little details within the practice, from what it looked like aesthetically, but also the experience, as well as the design and all like that. That stuff was just so fun. And my wife had such a great time with it as well. And us doing that together it brought us closer together. And even though it was really a stressful time, it was a whole lot of fun. And so that was by far my favorite part. The other stuff, I was just glad to have great professional help to help me make right decisions. Because you probably remember this, Stephen. The equipment bill that we got back from Henry Schein, like, here's the quote we got. It's like $400,000 or $500,000. Like, I only have a $500,000 loan from Bank of America to do this whole thing. Like, how is that even possible?
Well, we got
$500,000 whittled down to like $160,000 for the.
Dr. Brian likes a lot of things. We kind of had to, size it. Ben, what about you? The experience, obviously, all the way through, but was there a favorite part of the process for you? And you're, I would say, like, contrast the two of you, like Brian on a lot of the business systems and the design elements. I know Ben, but also Ben, you love like getting into the business, like numbers and all that stuff. What was,
honestly, like the first time I got the business plan and you and I went over it, I was geeking out. I'm like, oh my God, these projections, where did you get these numbers? How did you formulate this? But what about, you and I went through spreadsheets for an hour. So
I can totally see that.
Life in a spreadsheet's always a good life. But I think for me, the construction, like when we went in and started ripping out old stuff and putting in new stuff.
I think you froze there a little bit.
Yeah, we froze there for a bit.
Can you hear us, Ben?
I've lost him for a minute.
Construction, though.
Construction. Love construction. Yeah, I can get him back here.
I can totally see you and him geeking out over
Oh,
spreadsheets.
hey, Ben.
Okay, I'm back. We
You're
back?
back. All right. Hey, start there.
Okay. So yeah, the construction.
Yeah.
The construction for me was the fun. Every Friday I would go and I would take videos and photos of the practice being built. And just to for me, it was 4 years of creating this vision of what this space is going to embody. And so to be able to go through and see every single week my space becoming what my vision and my plan and my dream has been this whole time, all the way up until I think my second favorite part was the dress rehearsal, like actually walking a patient in the front door and treating and, you know, doing dentistry for the first time in a 4-year dream. Like that was a powerful moment. It was just really cool. I vividly remember that day and that experience of bringing that patient back and what room they sat in. And I mean, like,
that's good.
Just the littlest things of that day that I have forgotten thousands of times from thousands of other patients and experiences. But that one, I still remember the little nuances of that day.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Couple last things we'll close out here. Regrets? Any?
Me, I'll be brutally honest. No, zero regrets for me. Well, I take that back. If I knew that we would have shot out of the gate and been where we are today, I would have convinced you to find me the lending to get the 5,000 square foot space that we're going to move into here in a couple of years.
No problem. We can get that now.
That's right. That's right. No, I think we need to talk about a second location, Steven. Second startup. But yeah, no,
that's in the next episode that we talk about.
Next episode. No, zero regrets.
Cool.
Absolutely would go back, do it 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100 times. Super incredibly grateful for Jen not letting me hang up the phone without scheduling a 10-minute phone call with Jayme. Cool. I thank her all the time. I go back to that and that moment, and because that has now changed the rest of my life, my family's life, my kids' life, my community, my team, everything. Like what we have today, I wouldn't trade it for anything right now. So.
Sweet. Ben?
I've got nothing. I've tried to. I was like, I put a bigger couch in my office. I like to take a nap at lunch and mine's a little short. So
right.
I have no, I mean, this, and that's what goes back to that question about like that Brian asked about other dentists calling me. It's like, no, you just do it. Like, why wouldn't you? Like it really, it was a phenomenal experience, start to finish.
Cool.
And I am practicing dentistry the way that I want to practice in the place that I want to practice. And it's awesome.
Cool. And Ben, on that, I'll kind of dovetail off that. You said, just do it. Okay. Yes. A lot of people can go out there and do it. For the associates that are out there, what would be, let's say some of them are like, I think I want to do a startup. I'm just not quite sure if I want to do that. Would you have a recommendation for that? Maybe that first step that would be towards that. What says you?
I know that the Startup Practice Blueprint is a phenomenal first step for doctors who want to know what we're talking about on a deeper, more intimate level. I mean, we keep talking about these 13 steps, and you know we've kind of pieced together what they were, but we never really. What is 13? That's what that experience is going through every step with the individuals who are actually leading those steps within Ideal Practices. That would be where I would definitely jump into and figure out how you can get into one of those if they're not sold out.
Yep. Brian, you've been a part of those, obviously, on a panel, things like that. Describe what associates would get from the Startup Practice Blueprint. And for everybody, that's an event that Ideal Practices hosts twice a year, where we do put doctors who are thinking about that, going through those 13 stages, and we describe that entire process, and we go in pretty good depth. Brian, how would you describe that? Because you've been there, you've been a part of those, multiple ones.
Yeah, no, I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the last 5, I think, and every single time I go, I'm blown away at just how much information the team shares. Just like puts it out there, puts the steps out there, and you can learn so much about the process at the Startup Practice Blueprint. And that would be my first step. If I was an associate dentist right now and I was considering a startup, I would say go to Startup Practice Blueprint with Ideal Practices. You're going to learn a ton, nuts and bolts, numbers, sure, all that stuff. But then you ask the right questions so that now you can internalize these questions and you can truly ask yourself, man, how do I really answer that question? What do I really want? How do I want this? Why do I want this? And that is where it really gets personal, because you just worked your tail off to get into dental school, get through dental school, and to be an associate dentist, you're still working really hard.
Yeah.
When are you going to realize this dream that you had before you went to dental school? I know for me, it wasn't to work for Aspen Dental my whole career. Like, I wanted something more. It wasn't to be I didn't mean to say Aspen, it could be Heartland, it could be any corporate dental place where you're like told how to do it, when to do it, how much to do it, all that, right?
Oh, but Brian, I mean, even it could be even the associate position that you have where the owner dentist is dangling partnership in front of you for 3 years.
Bingo.
Right? There's plenty of ways that as associate dentists, we don't realize our dreams.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, you're 100%. And that I would say the Startup Practice Blueprint is a great first step in the right direction to get you really thinking about what you really want, and then how you can realize those thoughts, that vision that you may have, that maybe you don't even really actually know you have until you're asked the right questions, or until you're shown certain information that they show you at Startup Practice Blueprint. And then all of a sudden it's like light bulb moment, aha moment, oh my goodness moment. And that right there can change the rest of your life.
Yeah, you can think about your future. You think about like right? And I think as associates, you're kind of like all day, kind of every day, like, oh, time to make the donuts. You do it for so long for somebody else. It's like, how do you break that mindset? Because you know you want to do something. You're just like, how do you break it so you can think? I mean, think for yourself. Think about yourself and what you want. So I'll close out there. Dr. Ben, Dr. Brian, thank you. So gracious with your time this evening. Love the experience that you've shared with everyone here. For all the associates out there, you're going to get, these two guys are just not just great business owners. Like, let me make a kind of let me explain who these guys are now in their communities. These guys are community leaders in their communities. They are not just a dentist with good discounts. That is not what they're known for. They are known for how they've contributed to their community. They are fulfilled in practice ownership. They have produced very great. So, but it wasn't just about numbers of the practice. It was a goal of hitting numbers, but it was the goal of hitting the numbers the way they want by fulfilling what they wanted in their vision, and more importantly, serving the greater community that they serve around them. So these guys have built themselves up in that short period of time, and it can be done with the right process and the right steps. So Brian, Dr. Ben, on that, thank you both very much for taking time away from your families. I really appreciate it. Have a great evening, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.